In the chaos of the Second World War, amidst the thunder of tanks and the roar of planes, one unit carved a name for itself through sheer speed, audacity, and an almost supernatural ability to appear where least expected. They were the German 7th Panzer Division, but to their friends and terrified foes, they were known by a more spectral name, the Gespenster Division, the Ghost Division. How did one armored division become the stuff of legend? How did they move with such phantom-like speed that even their own high command often lost track of them? Today, we pull back the curtain of history to uncover the story of the Ghost Division, a unit that didn't literally disappear, but whose battlefield tactics made them seem like phantoms of war. The story of the Ghost Division is inseparable from its most famous commander, a man who would later become a household name for very different reasons, Erwin Rommel. When Rommel took command in early 1940, the 7th Panzer was just another armored unit. But he instilled in them a revolutionary doctrine. Speed is armor, and surprise is the ultimate weapon. This wasn't just a motto, it was a way of life. The Blitzkrieg, or Lightning War, was Germany's signature strategy, but the Ghost Division took it to a whole new level. During the invasion of France in May 1940, they became the spearhead of the German advance. Rommel led from the very front, often in his command tank, pushing his men relentlessly. They would bypass strong points, sever communication lines, and create chaos deep behind enemy lines before the defenders even knew what was happening. Imagine you're a French or British soldier. You hear reports of German tanks miles away, and suddenly they're on your flank, appearing as if out of thin air. This is where the name Ghost Division was born. They moved so fast and so far ahead of the main German force that they would frequently vanish from German maps and radio contact for days at a time. The German High Command would be frantically trying to pinpoint their location, only to hear they had just captured a key city or bridge 100 kilometers ahead of schedule. Their audacity was legendary. In one famous incident during the Battle of Arras, the 7th Panzer found itself facing a determined British counterattack. Instead of retreating, Rommel personally directed his artillery and anti-tank guns, turning a near disaster into a hard-fought defense. He understood that momentum was everything. To stop was to die. The division's advance across France was breathtaking. They covered vast distances, often fighting and moving for days without rest. The psychological impact on the Allied forces was immense. How do you fight an enemy you can't track? How do you establish a defensive line when the enemy is already behind it? The Ghost Division wasn't just defeating armies, it was shattering their morale and their ability to coordinate a response. This success was built on a few key principles. First, decentralized command. Rommel empowered his junior officers to make split-second decisions without waiting for orders. If they saw an opportunity, they were expected to take it. Second, combined arms coordination. The tanks, mechanized infantry, artillery and engineers of the 7th Panzer worked in perfect fluid harmony, a symphony of destruction moving at incredible speed. And third, there was the relentless drive of Rommel himself. He pushed his equipment to its breaking point, and his men even further. Maintenance was done on the fly, sleep was a luxury, and the objective was always the next town, the next river, the next strategic point on the map. After the fall of France, the legend of the Ghost Division was cemented. But their story was far from over. The division was refitted and sent to the Eastern Front for Operation Barbarossa, the invasion of the Soviet Union. Here, on the vast, unforgiving steppes of Russia, they would face their greatest challenges. The distances were greater, the weather more brutal, and the enemy, the Red Army, was unimaginably resilient. Initially, their tactics worked wonders. The Ghost Division was instrumental in the massive encirclements that captured hundreds of thousands of Soviet soldiers in the opening months of the invasion. They drove towards Moscow, once again outrunning their own supply lines and disappearing from the maps of their commanders. They fought in the colossal battles of Smolensk and Vyazma, continuing their spectral advance. But the Eastern Front was a different kind of war. The sheer size of the Soviet Union and its manpower began to take a toll. The brutal Russian winter arrived, and the ghosts found themselves frozen in their tracks. The once unstoppable tanks struggled in the snow and ice, and the men, unprepared for the extreme cold, suffered terribly. The division was bled white in the brutal fighting around Moscow, a spectre now haunted by the vastness of Russia itself. Pulled back from the brink, the division was rebuilt and sent back to France to recover and defend against the anticipated Allied invasion. They fought in the final desperate battles in the West after D-Day and in the East, a shadow of their former selves. The Ghost had become a whisper, a unit worn down by years of relentless warfare. They were no longer the phantom terror of 1940, but a veteran unit fighting a losing battle. The division finally surrendered to British and American forces in northern Germany in May 1945. So, the Ghost Division didn't disappear without a trace in the literal sense. They didn't vanish into thin air. Their legend comes from something more potent, their revolutionary impact on modern warfare. They disappeared from their own army's maps, only to reappear in the enemy's nightmares. They proved that a military unit's greatest strength isn't just its firepower, but its speed, its unpredictability, and its ability to mentally dominate the battlefield. The story of the 7th Panzer is a powerful lesson in military history about the incredible impact of doctrine, leadership, and psychological warfare. They were a force that for a time seemed to operate by a different set of rules, moving like a phantom through the fog of war. Thank you for joining us on this look into one of history's most fascinating military units. If you found this story compelling, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into the past. Let us know in the comments what other historical mysteries you'd like us to explore next. Until then, stay curious.